Hey there, welcome to Media Shenanigans, the show where we untangle the mess that is mainstream news reporting, one double standard at a time. Today, we're talking about how the media's favorite game isn't Monopoly or Scrabble, it's who gets to be a terrorist. And spoiler alert, if you're a Muslim, you're pretty much always on the losing end of that game. We have our usual suspect, any Muslim actually, strike that. Usually any black or brown person, in fact, insert almost any ethnic minority individual here who commits an act of public violence. Instantly labeled as an Islamist terrorist, a Muslim fundamentalist, and even an Islamic existential threat to Western civilization. Okay, alright, granted, sensationalism sells, but come on now, talk about hyperbole. Whether he is deranged or sane, alone or from a fringe lunatic group. Acting politically or personally, the religion of Islam, and exclusively so, always seems fair game to get dragged through the mud, and ergo, manipulatively by extension, all innocent Muslims also who believe in and commit to Islam. And then you have our non-Muslim, think, almost exclusively white here, purveyors of public violence, whether they're atheists, Christians, or Jews, who somehow dodge the T-word bullet and get much gentler, even often compassionate treatment, as we'll see. If one brown or black, i.e. even remotely ostensibly Muslim person commits public violence, all such seemingly similar people are condemned, scapegoated, and required to be responsible, or at least expected to be apologetic. This is not so much the case for any other group, and so it's high time, folks, for us to shine a brighter light upon this very ugly and truly sly, Dajjalic deception of, okay, wait for it, guilt by association, devilry. A timely and critical case in point is Axel Rudakubana, the black Christian who stabbed 3 little girls, which was manipulatively exploited to, yeah, you guessed it, target, persecute, and oppress innocent Muslim minorities up and down the UK by dim-witted, gaslighted far-right hooligans as their unified expressions of apparently the greatest of British values.
But the claim that the suspect was a Muslim migrant was presented as fact by many far-right figures, including Tommy Robinson and politician Nigel Farage. Hundreds gathered on July 30th, targeting Southport Mosque, with the resulting riot causing widespread damage to the mosque and public property. The next day, hundreds of far-right supporters gathered in Westminster outside Downing Street, chanting phrases such as "Stop the boats" and "Save our kids," as they threw bottles and cans at police officers.
Crowds clashing with police outside a hotel where immigrants are being housed.
Paint poured over several headstones in the Muslim burial area of Burnley Cemetery.
You can't make this stuff up even if you tried, folks, so buckle up, peeps. It's gonna be a bumpy ride through the unwieldy, xenophobic, and racist jungle of mainstream media bias. Controlled by the few, but yet controlling the oh-so-many. Here's a classic example. Muslim man attacks, Islamic terrorism. It doesn't matter if he yelled something, if he was mentally unstable, or even if he was just a lone wolf. You better believe that terrorism label is locked and loaded, ready to go. And what about Islam? Oh, don't worry, Islam is gonna get dragged into this one way or another. It's like the media has a blame Islam button, and they just can't help but press it.
Fix the things that announce themselves as in need of repair.
How could this have happened? A black white supremacist. Our search for answers led us here to the Wexler Home for the Blind, where Mr. Bixby spent the first 19 years of his life.
And so it goes without saying, folks, all Muslims, no matter how law-abiding or even how economy-contributing, are readily collectively punished, from media stereotypes to political scapegoats. Bam! And there you have it, instant headlines about Islamic terrorism and Muslim radicalization.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. We have no choice. We have no choice.
But what happens when a non-Muslim commits a similar act of violence? Do we ever see Christianist radicalization or Jewish terrorism?
Is the Israeli army raping children?
Our protection teams are working with children released from the Israeli military detention system. These children report sexual violence, including rape. They report being denied food, beaten and attacked by dogs. They report seeing their parents stripped and beaten in front of them. These children are struggling to cope with the profound trauma and mental and physical harm that this has caused.
That was the testimony from a doctor in Gaza who leads Save the Children's health unit. And yet this isn't the first time that the rape of Palestinian children by Israeli forces has been reported.
I was part of the human rights vetting process for arms going to Israel, and a charity called Defense of Children International Palestine drew our attention at the State Department to the sexual assault, actually the rape of a 13-year-old boy that occurred in an Israeli prison in the Mosque Bia in Jerusalem. We examined these allegations. We believed they were credible. We put them to the government of Israel. And you know what happened the next day? The IDF went into the DCIP offices and removed all their computers and declared them a terrorist entity.
In response to the rape allegations in 2021, Israeli authorities shut down a Palestinian NGO after it reported allegations to the US State Department that Israeli forces had raped a Palestinian boy.
To the occupied West Bank, where a video has surfaced showing Israeli forces assaulting a child in a shop in Hebron. This happened 2 weeks ago, but we're getting the video now. Soldiers can be seen attacking the boy, forcing him to take off his top, apparently because it had a gun printed on the shirt.
Israel has a long history, prior to the 7th of October, of systematically holding Palestinian children captive.
One of them caught me, hit me on my chest with the butt of his rifle. He pushed me to the ground and then all started beating me. They arrested me and took me into detention and beat me again and cursed at me.
More than 700 arrests of children have been documented since the 7th of October. A July 2023 Save the Children report revealed that before the 7th of October, Palestinian children arrested by Israeli forces endured severe emotional and physical abuse, with 86% beaten and 69% strip searched. And after the 7th of October attacks, Israelis started a social media trend mocking Palestinian detainees arrested by Israeli forces.
It's a whole different ballgame then, my friends. But why is that exactly? Let's dig a little deeper because, oh my, isn't it interesting? Take a look at this headline. Christian man opens fire, authorities investigating motives. Investigating motives? Really? Is that what we're all of a sudden calling it? You don't say? Rather funny how quite convenient the timing for nuance is, don't you think? When a purported Muslim attacks, the motive is apparently printed on his forehead. But when a Christian does it, suddenly it's a complex psychological puzzle. Maybe he was troubled, maybe he had a bad day, maybe he was just misunderstood. Anything but the T word, right? This dirty game, folks, needs to be seen for what it is. Machiavellian conniving for social engineering. And the populist mouthpiece perpetrators need to be known as little better than colonial-era fork-tongued savage racists, shameless propagandists, and called out for it too, so that they bear the shameful brunt of its infamy as a civilizing deterrent. Their enjoyed impunity only emboldens them further, which drags all of society down, further and further levels of moral and intellectual degeneration. After all, it wasn't all that long ago that very similar things were said about Jews and blacks, similar xenophobic targeting by white Western Europe. Today, those who do such things against Muslims would have done the same against Jews and blacks when doing so went unchallenged.